The closer you get to 5D Ascension, the more you realize spirituality might be a hoax. I am your host, Devon, and you are listening to another episode of Center of the Sun podcast. Thank you for listening. Oh my gosh, spirituality. The same spirituality that everybody practices, the spirituality that's practiced by the masses is not an actual hoax. Let me clarify that. But certain people find ways to manipulate your tendency to find answers to questions that are bigger than you. So sometimes it can feel like a hoax, especially when you are faced with questions, huge questions, might I add, like, could there be a fifth dimension? Or like, what is New Earth Ascension? I don't know. Can you imagine moving in a direction other than up, down, back, forth, height, width, or length? Well, that is something you should probably ask a scientist, because you need mathematics to understand that a place can be a place, but not a place right here. I don't know. It's not like you're going to leave Earth. It is not like you're going to go to another dimension or leave this place. But the reality is that 5D Ascension, it's the process of you being right here. And that's an odd way to say it, but it's the process of you being right here, right now, and fully right here. And it's something you should practice, because you will ascend eventually, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. So don't forget, it's something you've always wanted as well. But it's just hard to find that balance. So you just go back and forth. I know I do. But you feel miserable, especially when you waste your day. You get up in the morning acting like you're about to do something, but you don't do a single thing. Your lazy tail sleeps in and scrolls through social media every day, all day. And you keep cycling through all the apps, hoping to find something that suits your fancy. And eventually you attempt to do a thing. When I say a thing, I mean one thing. But that one thing ends up swiping all of your energy throughout the day and all of your joy, like Swiper knows, Dora the Explorer, whatever the hell. And as a result, you have found yourself 2 steps back when you haven't even found a step forward yet. I don't know how that happened. And now that the summer began, you found all the damn time you were looking for all summer. And you literally have entire days that you could effortlessly seize the day. But there's a conflict. There's always a effing conflict. And you're right now, you're attributing it to an internal fight. An internal fight between wanting to get up or wanting to remain lying down. And particularly a fight between what you want to do and what you should do. When you decide to stay still, you find boredom right there too. And social media is a temporary fix, but it gets a little repetitive when you look too closely at these people's crooked faces. Also, those people are sick, both figuratively and literally. If you don't have a mental issue, then they do. And if they don't have a mental issue, they are just plainly lying about the money in their bank, clearly. And they're lying about where they came from and where they were going as well. So you keep lying to yourself as well. And it's odd to think of yourself as a self-saboteur like Kaya. But take into account that you have always been the social butterfly with all of your friends. What you haven't realized is that you have the most trouble finding that right friend group. And other than the few odd people, and they barely have time to create something as solid as the fucking tectonic plates below you, let's not ignore that part, but it's not you. They just have their own busy lives, if you will. It just hurts to feel like a convenient option when they finally remember your existence. So what about your hobbies or like the other things you're supposed to fill yourself up with? Jada Pinkett just said that on her Red Table Talk, that you can't find happiness outside of yourself. What about your hobbies? Well, when you explore hobbies, it's like you have to be motherfucking America's Next Top Hobbyist just to engage in a like-minded conversation. And I don't understand. People keep getting competitive with you when you're literally just trying to vibe, just the vibes. It's one of the reasons why you keep your vibes and hobbies to your fucking self. Imagine yourself growing up as the biggest nerd, blurred, whatever in history, only to find out that you're not a true fan by today's measures. And everything is such a sensation. It's all sensationalized. It's all commodified, and everything is a holiday and a sensation. And no one really has true interest in that thing you've always loved besides what was sexy that day. So you continue to find it hard to believe that you're going to, let people know that you resonate with them just for them to start an argument with you. And as a result, you feel like a robot. And it sucks because most of the time, your emotions are all jumbled up like an extension cord in a junk drawer. It's not that they're not there. You can feel the happiest you've ever felt. But for some odd reason, it's just hard to show it on the outside. It just never bubbles up to the surface. And you tend to be more expressive around people you know. And me, hopefully. So maybe it's just a touch of social anxiety or depression. It can be medicated away or talked away or prayed away. It's just a wave hitting you. It'll pass. It's fine. But you always feel uncomfortable because you feel like you cannot talk to anyone these days who have similar experiences. You talk to your parents and, all you feel is tension and anxiety, more so much that you could cut with a butter knife to the point that you don't even know what to do. When you're sitting in front of somebody like that, you literally cannot even think properly. It's like you're watching Charlie Brown answer a question in class, in school. When you are having an experience like that, you can't hear anything either. You just end up nodding and looking lost. Of course, the person on the other side of you, on the other end of this conversation, notices how weird you're being. And it normally starts a chain reaction of questions about, why are you acting like that? Are you okay? And you feel like you're running a marathon with a broken leg at that point because you're tired of talking. When will this resolve? Will it ever? Well, you keep hearing that everyone is suffering these days, so shut the fuck up. Why aren't you allowed to express yourself? Why do people keep saying that to you? You're not lying about your feelings when you do speak up, so why aren't you allowed to express them? You are not simply being melodramatic either. You are not making something out of nothing. You are telling the truth. You can spell it out in plain English, all of your issues, but you still won't be heard. It is the most frustrating thing in the world. You're not the only person with these trust issues, though. But why don't you even trust anyone? Even people who have been a part of your life for years, and they have never even given you a reason to not trust them either. You don't. You still choose not to. You put a smile on at work every day. You treat everyone with respect and courtesy despite how much you want to scream on the inside. The light at the end of the tunnel is that you have the tools to help yourself at your disposal. Simple, free tools that anybody can use. Fun, exciting tools that can cure boredom and connect you with the deepest, most stable parts of yourself. Rachel Lee is a author of an article called Art Therapy for the Prevention of Cognitive Decline. And she defines art therapy as having the ability to enhance cognitive performance while treating older adults. By observing the behavior of several people over the course of weeks, Lee found that when they were evaluated all the same way, using all the same tests and stuff like that, art therapy showed an improvement in their cognitive health over time, over like 10 weeks or something like that. Studies like these have also shown the importance that more information needs to be gathered, because if something can be prevented and treated, something like dementia, then it may be this treatment and may be applicable to other parts of life. So there's another scientist. Her name is Suzanne Hayen, and she's the author of Art Therapy and Emotion Regulation Problems Theory and Workbook. And she says that the purpose of art therapy is for finding work methods, and this is a quote, finding work methods and for acknowledging and understanding processes that take place in and around the personal space, end quote. Basically, humans have shown that they're extremely territorial. Their instincts, our instincts are extremely territorial, so it's natural for you to take command of your own space first. And where does your personal space begin? Well, it begins on the inside and then extends immediately outside of your body, but mainly your personal space consists of your inside experience that no one else can have. And today I'm suggesting basically that you should focus on cleaning up your insides. Like, it's an imperative. Like, you don't have time to waste. And you should do this because you want to shine bright like a diamond. Shining like a diamond on the outside, like Rihanna said. Don't forget from social studies class that where this territory is, where there's territory, there is also conflict, and that's just like manifesting out in our real life. So if at the core of your being, you are a territorial, instinctual animal who needs personal space, then you can, it's safe to assume that, the core of your being also represents conflict. Suzanne Hayen also says that there are layers to your internal space. To your internal personal space. It's like you mark it like with your P almost. So it's you. It's and it's the most important part of your private domain. So it's safe to ask at this point, what would you expect from art therapy? Have you heard of art therapy before? Like, what is art therapy? Like, it sounds fun. To me, it sounds fun. But at the end of the day, it's a medical treatment. it's a doctor thing, and everyone's body is different, and that's why doctors have to do it. But you can dumb it down even for yourself in everyday life, and just the principles of art therapy. You can apply them to your everyday life, but like the side effects of like mental health therapy and shit like that, like you should definitely ask your doctor, like side effects, doctor. But according to Han, this Suzanne lady, she says that during art therapy, you can expect to, quote, experience the self, understand and appreciate the self and your own actions, recognition of yourself and your experience, which is pretty cool. Let's see. She continues on to say that your own story is an important object of therapy. So who you are and where you came from and where you're going is the object of art therapy. So that's pretty dope. And in the terms of like 5D Ascension, like that's what 5D Ascension is basically like figuring out who you are, where you're from, what you did. That's the point of art therapy. She also found, quote, that when a client experiences all of this first fundamental step of on this goal of like finding their self, it's, that activity itself can restore the balance and have a healing effect, end quote. So she says that, quote, when clients make an artwork, she says this is because, quote, when clients make an artwork, autonomy issues immediately come up. So you start deciding, like, is this I want pink, but everybody says I should have blue. Making something, and that's just my little anecdote in there. But basically, she goes on to say that, quote, making something, particularly something of your own, from within, is an act of autonomy over which you have control. That is the only control you have is your own response to stimuli. And you've known that. And she didn't say this. The quote goes on to say, while you're working on it, you can also be in touch with your inner feelings and your motivation. This is how art therapy can play an important role in helping clients to regain a certain autonomy and, more in general, in an ego-strengthening treatment process. In the most extreme sense, art therapy in itself, showing something of yourself or perhaps a figurative representation, can result in alienation from the self. This can happen when all contact with the self and with the surroundings is frightening and must be avoided to maintain a sense of self-preservation. Even abstract, schematic, and stereotypical designs can sometimes mean self-preservation or avoidance of contact, and this can serve to reduce anxiety, end quote. So I just wanted to clarify that this means that this is why you need a doctor to administer art therapy, because they need to control the environment properly, because if they scare you with a weird mural on the wall and then you scare yourself with a weird picture and then it's just a cycle of shit, that's why it needs to be administered by a medical professional. But if you look up a few activities, you may be able to apply this to your own life without the need of like doing it in a like art therapy way. And this was applied mainly to people with dementia and people with like autism and stuff like that. The easiest way, basically, this is what it's telling me, is that the easiest way is to get in touch. The easiest way, basically, to get in touch with your feelings is through your creativity and your art expression. Art expression has more applications than just being fun, and you put yourself in a trance, sort of. Like, when you are creative, it like doesn't matter if you're good at it or not. Like, when you're in that state, you're experiencing higher levels of yourself. Like this 5D Ascension, like this is what that is. I personally believe this is This is an aspect of spirituality, your artistic expression, not being perfect, not being Leonardo da Vinci or painting the Mona Lisa or like being the best dancer or whatever it is. Like any artistic expression helps you break down the barriers of logic and break down the barriers of rationality and the barriers of social construction. Like you are inundated with these ideas that you need to clear space. You need to clear space for your higher self. Like, for instance, I watched a YouTube video today and I watched part of it. Let me clarify. I watched the first few minutes of a YouTube video today about how evil Obama and the Bushes and the Clintons are, and Trump is being manipulated and . And the video went on to basically call these people dark regressive entities. And I was like, okay, those are just some keywords that like make me shut down, because I know that this is not a horror story. Like anytime that a news or a spirituality thing feels like a horror movie, I immediately turn it off, because I know from my creative work and my meditation and stuff like that, anybody that says words like that is not speaking from a space from which they've done their own internal regressive dark work. Because everybody is an internally dark regressive entity at some point. And if you've ever listened to my show, we have learned over the course of years that darkness represents the unknown. It does not represent a dark regressive entity. And as for me and my house, there is no inherent evil that resides in the darkness that does not also reside in the light. And that is a lesson that only my higher self could tell me. Nobody on this earth ever told me that. I came up with that through meditation because humans are misguided. There are two other authors, David Gusick and Marcia Rosal, who put together this art therapy handbook in 2016 through this publisher called Wiley. And in it, they help doctors figure out how to best treat and prevent various threats to people's mental health. They explain that different forms of art therapy, that there are different forms of art therapy, but today I wanted to focus specifically on psychoanalytic art therapy, because it is the foundation, I believe, and no, they believe that it is the foundation of a lot of modern treatments we use today. So I wanted to see, if you've ever listened, to my show, like, oh gosh, we've just been going on and on and on about modern science, ancient wisdom, bridging the two. But I wanted to focus specifically on psychoanalytic art therapy because if you're not incorporating it into your daily life, you're simply missing out on an opportunity to experience 5D Ascension. So I wanted to kind of explain that to you because it's mainly used to uncover communication that you don't verbalize on a daily basis. So this is why it's 5D, because it's like outside of like your normal realm of whatever. And there is a huge assumption that you have to make. Basically, when you read, this therapy handbook and stuff like that, like basically when you observe a human's mental health, and when you observe a human, you are observing an internal conflict. And they, these people, they don't describe this part of your mind as just a conflict, just a tussle. Jason Derulo was not here dancing. They're describing a dynamic battle that is the culmination of a series of like very pivotal factors in your life. There are things in your private domain that we spoke about earlier that are forbidden for you to say out loud. Like basically like your inner whatever the hell is forbidden from saying it out loud. And we know this is true as millions of elderly people slip into memory loss and back to their younger childhood selves, cussing people out again. All the things that they unlearned as they grew up. Specifically back in the 1950s, there was a scientist, her name was Edith Kramer. And she said that art therapy did less with resolving internal conflict, but helped more by assisting you with coping with that internal conflict or whatever the hell you're coping with. And of course, there is no magic pill. Of course. But these authors, all of these people, they found that art therapy has some sort of calming effect. And I believe that it's how you know it's a great tool of expression and 5D Ascension. Like art therapy is so cool. Like drawing pictures and using paint is just fun in and of itself. But then when you apply it to like becoming closer with your higher self, basically 5D Ascension is all about moving into higher realms of consciousness. So art therapy can help you do that. But it can help you do that because you can never get to 5D Ascension if you never do the work, if you never want to. The first thing about 5D Ascension is that you have to believe. And it all starts within through constant checking and balancing like Congress and the Senate and the House and the Senate and all that shit. And this includes your mind and your body. So you got to eat fruits and you got to eat vegetables and you got to exercise and you got to unlock your soul. So what do you think? Do you believe in 5D Ascension? Like, what are you doing? Who are you following? Visit my blog, devon.org. My blog is spelled DVAUGHN.org. Also, you can send your thoughts to me, host at centersun21.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.